Hey everyone, welcome to the February sub video. Today I'm walking you through our latest experiment with a washed anaerobic Sidra from Hacienda La Florida in Ecuador, roasted on our new roast machine. We chose this coffee because Sidra is an important varietal for La Florida and for Ecuadorian coffees generally. Check out part 1 of our February sub for more info. Last month, we picked up the roast L200 Ultra, which roasts about 100 to 200 grams per batch. Compared to bigger machines like my Stronghold with a 700 gram batch size, or a rented Loring S15 with a 4 kilo batch size, the stakes feel way lower. Even with really pricey coffees at over $200 per kilo, like Esmeralda or Bambito, a bad roast is only a $20 to $40 mistake. This machine does cost us more in time during production since we're doing lots of tiny batches, but the trade-off is worth it because it lets us be much pickier about what we actually ship. We're not stuck asking, is this batch bad enough to toss? Or just good enough to send? We can just throw it out and try it again. That's the theory anyway. The next step was figuring out a profile on the roast well enough to actually realize these benefits. The roast is, in my opinion, a very capable machine, but the control scheme is tough to learn. So this month, we took that as a challenge. We decided to dial in the machine across 2 different batch sizes, using the 2 different modes available. One in regular mode and the other in counterflow, and try to make both taste good at an ultralight roast level. We started by running a 200 gram profile in counterflow mode, a relatively new feature that launched last year on this model of roast. Here's the basic idea. Hot air enters from the bottom right of the drum and flows up to the exhaust on the top left. In normal mode, the beans tend to sit on the left side of the drum and leave the inlet more exposed. Counterflow flips that so that the beans cover the inlet, which means that heat transfers more efficiently into the bean mass. It's powerful, but it's also super fiddly. A 1% tweak in power on a 0 to 100 scale can make a huge difference, and even at a 200 gram batch size, we end up sitting around 50% power for most of the roast. When we dropped to 100 grams, we lowered the inlet fan enough that the drum pressure stayed relatively consistent with our 200 gram batches, which prevents flooding the heating element with too much airflow. Building on our approach with a 200 gram batch size, we held a flat inlet temperature that we guessed by looking at previous roasts and other people's profiles, which put us around a 4-minute roast. Since we knew first crack on this machine is roughly between 205 to 210 Celsius, we manually eased off the power to bring down the inlet temperature as the bean probe reached approximately this temperature, and increased the exhaust fan to vent smoke and add a slight cooling effect, to get the general shape of the profile set. From there, we copied the profile, including the manual changes we made, then adjusted the inlet curve points and fan settings to compensate, repeating until it tasted good. This month was all about getting to know our new machine, and so for our 2 full work weeks worth of roasting to get this coffee dialed in, we tried to roast them to be able to brew the same despite using 2 different modes and 2 different approaches. In the cup, you'll find an apricot and berry acidity, some tea-like herbal character, and a subtle dried prune note in the finish. We think it's a very good version of a classic Sidra profile from La Florida and more generally Ecuador, and it's something we're really happy to share with you all.